One tag, 1 week, one shot to make it count. This is for the hunters who hit the road and get after it, no matter the odds. This is DrawnWest. All right, let's kick this thing off, Zach. So this is going to be a shared podcast. We're doing a collab between DrawnWest and Okayest Trapper, and we're going to talk trapping. We're going to talk mistakes, I'm sure, because I've made a bunch of them already, and we're going to talk all good things. So I'm really excited for this. This is the first time we've done an episode like this, but I wanted to get you on a call because, man, I've just recently, the trapping bug has hooked me. I'm hooked. I'm fully hooked. I'm in a bad way. I've got a box of traps coming today. More traps.
You lucky dog.
Yeah.
Which means that's when the work starts, right? When the traps show up, and then you got to go down the rabbit holes of trap preparation, everything else like that. So God bless you on that one.
Yeah, I haven't prepped any I haven't prepped any traps yet. I know you're supposed to. So here, you're in Idaho, right? Maybe real quick, what is Idaho's system for getting into trapping? Can you just go buy a license and give it a swing and then you realize it's hard and then you go find someone to learn from?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's kind of how it was for me. I fell into trapping. I came out west, 8 years ago now to pursue big game with my bow, the typical path. I think a lot of people have followed in the past 10 years. And then I met some old timers who were like, hey, do you really want to get good at hunting? Maybe pull back on the push-ups and actually get out in the woods and do something you can do year-round. And, it was trapping. And it was as simple as you said. Like, I literally went and took a trapper's education course one day, maybe 2 days. I can't remember off the top of my head at Idaho Fish and Game. And then you're out swinging. There was an extra course if you're doing wolf trapping, of course, which is an extra 8 hours of education and training. But ultimately, that's what it is. Like, hey, here's a trap. Like, we didn't set any traps in the education program. It's not like we were like, pulling leaves down, setting pans, adjusting pan tension. It was literally like, here's a trap. Here's what you do. Here are the regulations. Go at it.
Here's what a St. Bernard looks like. We don't want these. Yeah.
That's a no-no.
Yeah.
But that was about it.
Interesting. So my story is a little bit different. So me and my wife, I've grown up hunting and fishing my whole life here in Minnesota. We have private land, all that. So Orange Army deer hunter, lifetime fisherman, grew up in a John boat and never touched a trap. I knew what they were. I was deathly afraid of conibears, right? As an upland bird dog owner, conibears are just terrifying. And I've never seen one. My brother's just running around with massive zip ties in his vest in case, right? And so me and my wife bought this 40-acre farmstead here. And I don't know how much you know about Minnesota. You probably know more now in the last couple of weeks than you'd care to.
Probably not the parts that are of interest to me, though.
Yeah, but I live only 45 minutes north of that. Like we're within commuting distance of the metro. And we found a 40-acre farmstead in the middle of the country that was in our budget. So we obviously jump on it, right? Well, then it's normal farmstead things, right? We got a tractor. My wife wanted chickens, and then I wanted chickens, so now we have a bunch of chickens. Then the fox comes and starts eating our chickens because we free range them. Because my wife wanted chickens solely for the bugs. She just wanted to make sure we don't get wood ticks. Well, now we got this fox, right? So I've got my Beretta 12 gauge with buckshot at the back porch 24/7 waiting for this fox to come by. I passed him twice bow hunting. And once again, in the middle of the winter, before he started eating chickens, I'm like, oh, how cool. We live in the country. There's a fox now. I thought we had an understanding. Like, these are my chickens. You can have everything else. Well, we didn't. And so now I'm trying to shoot the fox. That doesn't work. Then I'm like, all right, I'm going to trap this fox and the coyotes. We have tons of coyotes. So I buy a bunch of traps. I start looking it up, and I go to buy my trapper's license. And they're like, oh, no, you need to take a course. What do you mean you got to take a course? I'm a firearm safety instructor. I already took the courses. No, it's a new course. You got to take a new course. They're only offered in the fall, and it's already February. So I had to wait. Well, then it was only offered when I was on an elk hunt. So missed a whole nother year of trapping. Finally got the course. So we had to do an online course where we take a test on all the laws, right? How big of how big of a body grip can you set on dry land? How recessed does a 220 need to be in a whatever? And I passed all of those. Obviously, I'm an engineer, so I had, read all the stuff. It wasn't a hard test, but you couldn't wing it without ever looking at the material. Then I do the field day, and then the field day was mostly about like, hey, we know you've all passed the laws, so we're done with that. If you have questions on laws, just text us. Here's how you do this. So they prepped traps, they dyed traps, wax traps. We set traps, we set dirt hole sets. Like everyone set one and bedded one. Then they went through all the water sets, and since we know not everyone had waders, just the instructor did it. They had a beautiful property with like a man-made dike going down one side of a wetland. And so every 50 feet, it was just like a different type of set, and showed us all of these things. And then they showed us how to skin some animals, which it's interesting. I've got a lot of experience skinning like deer, so it's pretty relatable. But yeah, so it was a process to get started. Meanwhile, I've got like all these traps that I'm like getting raccoons on pictures, and I'm like, I want to trap these things. The only thing I could do is coyotes and the fox because he was depredation. And then coyotes are unprotected, so you can do whatever you want with those here. So that was my arc. It was like 3 years from when I bought my first trap and I was all excited to go start trapping to when this year I've actually got a trap line.
So I got to know, and this kind of goes to like my normal questioning line. This happened after your farm set, but when was the first time you ever had heard about trapping in your lifetime that you remember that at least stuck out to you?
Well, so that's a great question, because I think where I grew up and a lot of the places I would go in Minnesota is like endemic trapping culture. So like my parents had cabin up in like Bemidji, Northwoods, Minnesota. I mean, that is endemic trapping culture. So you would see like a big bear trap foothold on the wall at a restaurant. You would see all these traps around, and you just knew trapping was a thing. I trapped some squirrels in my backyard. I was always trying to make like the little box and a stick and try to get a squirrel, and you'd just be shocked when it finally worked. I think one time I found an old live trap, and I was so excited because now I'm going to really catch these squirrels, because we lived on the lake, but tons of mature oak. So it's just park effect woods and tons of squirrels. So I had my trap set, caught a squirrel. I think we were gone for the day. We came back, my trap was gone. And so my dad made me put a rope on it in case I caught a skunk. And so the rope is just going down into the lake. And so I'm like, what? And I get home. Sure enough, there's a squirrel in the trap. Trap is destroyed, just mangled, and in the water. And so I'm like, I think a dog or a coyote like tried to get the squirrel out and eventually just kept pushing it into the lake and chewing all the so trap was mangled. That lasted for one squirrel. And then I would see traps, like, you'd see traps around, like people trying to catch muskrats or beaver. And I was terrible because I was this kid in the summer, and this is like where we played. So I just run around with sticks and just pop people's traps. It's just awful, right? And so you're not supposed to do that, folks. But I was a kid, and the statute of limitations has expired. And yeah, that's kind of just what it was. Then I got really serious, and like knowing it, my cousin started trapping like our deer hunting land, and he was catching fox and all kinds of random critters. And so then I was really like, what are you doing with them? How do you catch them? And you just see it because we were out deer hunting all the time, and he'd have a culvert set for, I don't know what kind of set he was building. He's kind of a redneck engineer like myself. So he was probably doing something where like there was bait in the middle and a conibear in the middle.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's awesome. And, like, again, I didn't grow up with any of that exposure outside of like the caricatures of traps with teeth on them and everything else like that. But what I'm interested in, especially hearing you talk recently, like you opened the show with like, I've got the bug.
Yeah.
Obviously you're an upland, bird dog kind of guy. And you said you and your brother would walk around with big zip ties in case you came across some sort of like dryland conibear, so you can kind of keep your jaw shut, or keep them open rather, so nothing gets caught. I'm just curious. I have a theory.
Yeah.
My theory is, and I've experienced this recently with my brother-in-law's dad. He's always been interested in trapping. He's an older gentleman. He just retired from the U.S. Postal Service after, an entire career. And he's got some property down in Georgia. And then he started having beavers dam stuff up. He's like,
Oh,
I don't know if I can do it. He went through this whole thing where he like hired somebody to come in with thermals and try to shoot the beaver. That didn't work. He tried to, blow up dams and they just kept rebuilding them. And then I'm like, get a trap, get a trap. And, it's one of those things where I think everyone just kind of like pushes this activity to the side of being like, it's not for me, it's not for me until you do it.
yeah.
And then when you do it, it like opens up this whole worldview. And again, I always say it's like it's the only real time machine that we have to go back in time to the 1800s
Right.
and experience something different. So I'm just curious, like all your experience in a world, I won't call it anti-trapping. It was just like, cautious around it and being in another activity that, there have been conflicts in the past.
Right.
Between, people using bird dogs and trappers. But now that you're in it, what was the mindset shift? Like, what was it about actually setting traps that made your mind change where you're like, no, I've got the bug now?
Well, I think a lot of it was, we were never afraid of traps except for conibears. And it's mostly because like here in Minnesota, I think we've had 8 dogs, unfortunately get killed in conibear traps, but they were all illegally set conibears, right?
Yeah.
So think like 330 on dry land, like that's not legal, but it's like red stoplights don't stop cars. They just tell people they should stop. Like you still got to look both ways. That's kind of how I am, right? And so we were just cautious, hunting public land that you could run across a conibear, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe it was an old one from last year. Maybe one fell off the cabbage truck. Who knows? So we're just a little cautious. Not that we were like terrified, of going hunting. So we were never kind of against trapping. I think mostly it was just like we just didn't do it. When I'm planning hunts, I like to know what my odds of drawing the tags are so I can apply accordingly and have a better idea where I'll be hunting this fall. I like to go out west every year, and to do that means I've got to keep an eye on point creep and draw odds so I know which states Abby and I should be applying for so we have a tag in our pocket come fall. Our favorite way to see what the current draw odds for a unit are and how fast point creep is moving is by using the draw odds tool in the Go Hunt Insider service. We can look at any unit over multiple years to get an idea of how fast point creep is moving and what last year's draw odds were and get an idea of where we stand for this year's application. Draw odds is just one of the tools you'll get when you sign up for Go Hunt Insider that I use on every one of my hunts. Head over to GoHunt.com and check out Insider, and you'll see why it's my single favorite resource for Western hunting. And when you sign up, use the code DrawnWest, that's one word, DrawnWest, and they will give you $50 of free credit in the gear shop towards any gear you need for your next hunt. Go to GoHunt.com, get signed up, and you'll see you have way more opportunities than you realize. We just didn't have the time. And I really do believe trapping is not for everyone. I think it's a fun hobby if you've got land like me. Run around and do some trapping. Do a long liner, like that's a full-time job.
Yeah.
And people I don't think they understand how much of a full-time job it really is. And so I think the mindset shift for me to like get the bug was kind of that addiction to challenge, that addiction to the outdoors, and that addiction to like learning something new that's very hard. It's very hard to, from what I've experienced, and it's probably because like I said, I don't prep my traps yet. It's really hard to get a coyote to step on a pan and get the pan to go off. It's hard, a lot of this is challenging. And so I'm an engineer. I like solving problems. I like trying to figure things out. I like the outdoors. I like fur. I've always kind of had a fascination for furs. I had a buddy gift me a badger one time. It must have been a bad badger that he couldn't sell or something, but he gave me I don't know if it's tanned or if it's just stretched and put up. But it's in the round. It smells kind of funny, so it probably is tanned. He gave it to me as like an 8-year-old. And so I still have that badger fur, and that was started the fascination of furs, I think. Now I want one of each for sure. And so I don't think the mindset shift was much more like, trapping is this whole new thing as much as like it's just a different challenge. And now it's a challenge in a season where I don't have other challenges.
Yep.
I didn't start my trap line until Christmas, because I bow hunt here. I don't really want to be walking the whole farm trapping. And I know every trapper will be like, it doesn't matter. And I'm just like, man, everything I've ever seen on big bucks says it does.
Yeah.
So I'm not telling you you're wrong. My life experience just tells me if you're walking your property every day, you're going to see less mature bucks on camera or on daylight. So, but I'm going to tweak it a little bit. Next fall, I'm going to try to trap coons, but I'm going to do it at the perimeter of my yard, not in the back where we hunt.
I think that makes sense. And I think that's a lesson in and of itself in general, even whether it's trapping, hunting, like there are general rules that apply generally.
Yeah.
But everyone's lived experience, everybody's situation and location is different. And like, it's the same with trapping. Like there are people you'll meet who are just absolute diehards, sometimes blowhards of like how you prep and, get your traps ready. It's boil, hang, rust, dye, wax, the whole nine. It's like, if you don't do that, you're never going to trap an animal.
Yeah.
But then you also have some old timers who are like, they'll go to that box you're going to get today that still have like the oil from the manufacturer on it, and they'll be slap it down. I still catch coyotes that way.
Yeah.
It's everything in between. It's like what works for you. And it's definitely a little bit of trial and error for sure. Well, not a lot of trial and error, but different things work at different places at different times.
Yeah. Well, the whole trap prep thing, it's not that I don't believe it. It was like when I first got into it, I was looking up what you want to do, right? And they're like, oh, you want to do this, this, and this. So I boiled the stuff off, but then they're like, oh, you want them to rust. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to use them and they'll rust, right? Well, the online and the forums and everyone's like, well, I do this and this, and then I do that and this. And so I'm like, well, it seems like the only thing that's constant is that everyone says you got to rust them. So I'm just going to boil them, get the grease off, and then I'm going to use them. And so I used them for like 2 years. They're rusty now. And now they're froze into the ground and stuff. So that was part. So then I'm getting at like dry dirt, and like I'm kind of like mostly doing this on like I'm half cocked the whole time. And so it's like I don't have wax dirt, but I have some dry dirt. It's like I don't have this, but I have that. And so I'm just trying to make it work. I caught a possum in a foothold. So trying to catch the fox who ate the chickens, and I was there was like a chicken carcass that I like buried in a hole because you can't put it on dry land.
Yep.
Here in Minnesota. And so I got a bunch of, so caught the possum, and then the chicken was out of the hole and gone. So I think the fox came by afterwards and got the chicken anyway. Yeah. So it's just like all this learning. So next year, what I really want to do, actually might do it this spring, because spring is drastically less hectic than fall, is I might prep all my traps at the end of this season and then put them up. And hopefully that'll like keep them prepped, because I have a shop and it'll be dry. Hopefully that'll keep them prepped all summer, and then they're just ready to go in the fall. So that's my plan.
Well, there's also a theory, like you've got space in your, I'll call it your back 40, your acreage behind the place. Like one of the things I do with my wolf traps is when I do prep them, I just hang them up in the trees.
Yeah.
Like you got a spot out there and just leave them outside, descent for an extended period, a couple months before trapping.
So they're prepped and hanging, and like what people do here with their hunting clothes, they're orange.
Yeah.
Like you drive around the week before deer season and everyone's
just hanging out in the woods or on a line. Yeah. The same thing. But like you just find a tree out there, drive some screws in it, hang up by the chain after you get them all prepped, like with your little white cotton gloves or however psycho you want to get about it, and, put them out there.
Yeah, no, I have leather gloves that I wear for like walking. And then I do have a pair of like rubber lined, cotton gloves. And the thought is I switch to especially footholds. Snares, I haven't gotten crazy with it yet. And that's how I caught my first catch on the line this year.
Snaring?
Cable restraint.
Yep.
Technically, we can't snare here in Minnesota, so it's called a cable restraint.
Yeah, we just say snare out here in Idaho.
Yeah, but we just don't have cables. Ours are release. Yeah.
Yeah, what we actually do too, we have the breakaway release at a certain poundage, so that is part of the wall.
But yeah, so now, like I said, like it started with trying to catch this fox, and then I added a couple some dog proofs, because I've always wanted. I know we have a ton of coon. Get them on trail camera pictures. I see them bow hunting, and I really want to catch a coon, and I want this weather to warm up so they come out of their dens. So I got 4 of those, right? So I got 3 footholds. I bought 2 and the coons, and then my free gift at the trap website was another foothold. So I got 3 footholds, 4 dog proofs. Then I was like, well, I started putting out these dog proofs, right? And we have hard frozen ground here in Minnesota. It was just below zero for a full week. And so what I realized is like earth anchoring and footholds are hard to learn. I have to move them all the time. They keep freezing in. Like, it's just difficult. And so I'm like, why don't I just snare these things? Like, put it on a trail. We have like 40 acres. It's mostly like Alaskan brush, like thick alder, thick willow. Like, it's a jungle. So it's sometimes kind of easy to see the trails. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to do snares, or I'm going to do the cables, right? Snares. Yeah. Well, I still put them on earth anchors. Well, then I had to move them around all the time. So now I'm pulling these earth anchors out. And like, I'm a big dude, like 6'2", 250, well, not 250, 260. And it's hard to pull those suckers out. I'm like using leverage and everything, and I can get them out usually if I drill them a lot and then pull them. But I'm like, this is stupid. I can't move. So then I'm like, all right, next up on the list, like just continually learning. Why don't I do drags? And so then I'm talking like, well, you know, drags can be this and that and the other thing, and they might not be the best for snares. I'm like, all right, well, but what's the answer? And that's the hard part I've learned with trapping is like, there are so many different answers to each question. There's not an engineer likes one answer. Like, here's the equation, here's the answer. And there's a lot of them. It's an art, really. And so, yeah, anyway, I ordered some chain, bought some rebar, bent it, welded it, put drags. Well, now I can move these snares wherever I want. And because as I'm learning, like, oh, that wasn't a very good spot. There was tracks there that one day in fresh snow. So I put a snare there. And then there hasn't been a track there in 3 more weeks. So that really wasn't a trail. That was just one wildcatting through the woods, right? And so I keep moving them around. And then one I did that with, I pulled a snare out of one spot, put it in the next spot. The next day I caught the fox that's been eating our chickens. It's for sure him or her. Yep. I didn't really do a evidence of sex check. But it's the one that's the same size we've been seeing. He's got big, tall, black feet. The other one looks like a small kid, or kit or whatever they call him, pup. So I think we got the one that's been eating our chickens.
Well, that's good. Yeah. That's awesome. That's worth the foray into to trapping in and of itself. But yeah, like maybe for someone as like nearly autistic as me, like the art versus science thing is very true. Like, you know, you'll try something, it'll work once, you're like, I got this dialed, and then it won't work again. And then you sit there and you wrestle and you fight. Like the amount of times that I've been out trying to dig up anchors or something, and I'm like 100 pounds light. I'm like 170, 180 pounds. Like,
yeah.
You know, I'm out there wrestling stuff frozen to the ground after, you know, a week or so, or however long something's been out. And it is brutal. It's like, if you've ever been snowmobiling, like when you bury a snowmobile and you're just sitting there digging it out, and all of a sudden you're out in the woods and you're sweating to death. It's the same thing. And you're always questioning yourself, like, why am I doing this? Like, this is the dumbest thing in the world.
Yeah.
But, you know, to your point, like I always started with footholds and conibears, mostly conibears for like water trapping, but footholds on dry land for, you know, coyotes,
right,
fox, wolf, you know, the whole nine. And what I found is where I'm trapping so far out, it is a pain. They're all heavy. Like you have to like, I think the shocker to me in the trapping world, to your point, is like the physical exertion. Like people just think, oh, trapping is the laziest form of recreation in the outdoors.
Oh, that's fishing.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. But, you know, people have that notion about trapping. I guess, oh, it's indiscriminate. You're just throwing stuff out there. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. But it's so much work that I have, like in the past 2 years, really tried to take up cable restraints. Because what I've realized, if I'm dragging a sled with 200 pounds worth of steel, chain, anchors, foothold, you know, all my equipment, like it's exhausting to go 3 miles into the backcountry through snow versus like I can get like a pouch and have tons of like cable restraints. Yeah. It's so much easier to do that in like drags or whatever else you're using than it is from just dragging a sled full of steel out in the woods.
Well, the drags do add up too, because you got 8 foot of 2 chain, a couple swivels, and then the rebar itself is probably 2 pounds.
But you add the footholds on top of that. I'll take any weight savings I can get.
Right. Of course, like that. It is like the cable restraints are much lighter because you have to stake it either way. Like if you're staking to a tree and you just have a cable restraint, like a 5-foot lead, and then you've got an 8-foot anchor cable with a hook on it, and you just always are going around a pine tree and latching it, like, well, then you have zero weight, like literally nothing. You could have 200 snares with you and you have the same weight as like 25, Bridger 550s or whatever it is.
Yeah. So you said you like fur. Like you got that badger. Why fur? And I want to preface this with I took a screenshot of it. I haven't posted it or anything, but I took a screenshot for the first time since I discovered trapping almost 8 years ago. There was an article, a video article on CNN about fur making a comeback.
Ooh. I hope so.
I think so too. I mean, I think there's like finally that like tilt of like the Temu, like synthetic fur versus real fur. And that's kind of entering the zeitgeist of like what is actually more sustainable and better for the world. And, evidence shows it's real fur. But I'm just curious, like with you, like there does seem to be some sort of human, attraction to fur, at least that I've noticed. And personally, in my own, I'm looking at furs all around my little shop and it's fun to go touch. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what my favorite would be or what got me into the fur. Probably just because of the love of animals, and I love taxidermy. I've got 2 bulls shoulder mounted outside in my next room, and so yeah, I mean the fox was awesome because that was the one animal I've been trying to catch the longest, and I haven't caught many. Right, I caught 2 summer possum in the chicken coop area, so they didn't have good fur because of summer. I do want to catch a possum again because I do like their fur. And we have a lot of them here in Minnesota. And so that's one. Coyote there's something about a coyote, I think, that everyone wants to catch. It's like probably the smartest of the canines. Maybe fox could be, I don't know. But a nice coyote for sure is on my list. And then coon, skunk, and possum because of the. This episode is brought to you by Matthews Archery. Folks, I just upgraded my Halon to the all-new Matthews Lift X, and I absolutely love it. I went with the 33-inch axle, which is a great fitting bow for anyone like me that's got a little bit longer draw length. And I also went with the 80-pound limbs this time because it gives me the flexibility whether I want to shoot it at 70 for whitetails and target league, or if I want to bump that up to 75 or 80 the next time we go on an archery elk hunt for a little extra energy. And the one thing that I am still blown away by is how smooth this bow shoots. There's no hand vibration when it goes off. It's incredibly quiet, and it's an absolute tack driver. So if you're in the market for a new bow, head over to MatthewsInc.com and check out the new Lift X, either the 29.5 or the 33, depending on what you're looking for. And you're going to see why I've been loving my new Lift X. What I'm really excited about those 3 species is the habitat value. So, not just our chickens, but turkeys and pheasants. Like we don't have a very strong population of either turkeys or pheasants. And so I really want to help out as much as I can with the trapping. And obviously I just love the fur. So like, I'd love to have a skunk fur. I'd love to have coon. I mean, when the time comes, we're going to hammer coon because they're not that hard to catch, and possum aren't that hard to catch either, but they're also denned up. So I'm excited for all 3 of those, kind of just to get each, like kind of the collector mode. Like I need one of each so far. I don't do any water trapping. We have a couple small ponds on the farm, like 1,000 square feet or less, right? 20 by 50. I don't know if we have some of these. I'm like, they say every body of water has a mink in it. I'm like, well, does this body of water have a mink in it? Because it's kind of small. Well, we sure don't have like beaver, river otter. I don't see any muskrat huts. And I just don't love water trapping. I don't want to be doing it before ice up anyway, because I want to be bow hunting. Now, if I shot my buck September, Abby shoots her buck September, and we're done hunting, I could reconsider, but still, like, I don't own waders. I don't own water sets. I don't know if I would love the idea of water trapping, but eventually I'll probably get to the point where I want to go catch a beaver and a mink and have those furs. But the true like North Star, where it's like, I know this is going to take years, but I want to do it, is the Fisher and Bobcat.
Yep.
And we don't have a lot of either of those.
Yeah. What's the regulation in Minnesota around those two? Because I mean, I know
It's a
like
super short season. So it's like December 15th through the 25th or like 13th through the 22nd. So I missed it. I had a beaver on, or not a beaver, a fisher on camera in that
oh wow,
period on my farm. Yeah. So that was really
that's
cool.
cool.
But I missed the season, and I don't have a bobcat on camera. There's only ever been one caught in my county. So I'd have to travel north to do that. And so that probably wouldn't happen until like I have a ranger and I could do like a long line on a ranger and just every 3 days go run the trail with the ranger. Because it's quite the time investment. I'd have to for sure do kill sets, which I think you typically do for fisher and cats anyway. But I wouldn't have the time to go every day and check that line.
Yeah, what is the? I mean, is it like a draw thing, or is it like as a trapper you can take one of each per
I think
year?
it's 2 fishers and martin combined, so 2 of each or 1 of each, or 2 of one or 1 of each, and then up to 5 cats, but only 1 can be south of a certain road.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's pretty cool though. I mean, fisher and bob. Like I was up trapping at my cabin last weekend and caught a martin. I don't know. There's just something about all these animals that are just so cool, and I think that's what I really, if I reflect on it, what I love the most about trapping is I love bow hunting. I love getting close to critters. This is just like that next step of getting even closer. Like, it's like, it's going from like rifle hunting, which, is very difficult. I rifle hunted that velvet mule deer and I only got within 300 yards of that bucket the time that I took it. And it was still awesome, still grueling, still hard. And then you do the bow hunting, you get a little closer. And then trapping's like that, the inches game. And then especially when you're coming up on them in footholds and you actually get to interact with them or in a live trap, it's pretty cool just to see how they react and how cool they are, whether it's fisher, martin, bobcat.
There's a lot of them. And do you get into like so practically right now, I don't care about the money. Like I have 2 mentors that I kind of talk to, and one of them is a full-time trapper, like kind of like you said, like he's talking about like, how coyote and fox are already past prime. So he's like pulling his sets and it was middle of January. Right. And I'm like, well, it seems to me like they should still have quite a bunch of good fur, but he's like, this is his day job. So if he's doing he's talking about the differential between how much did my traps cost? How much did my time cost? How much am I going to get this for this fur? Yep. My other mentor is like the total opposite. He's like, go for it. Like it could work. Who knows? Like, yeah, Andy says they're past prime, but I think they're really cool still. Or like, yeah, these coon, when they get kind of springy, they turn brown, but I think it kind of, that contrast kind of looks nice sometimes. You know what I mean? So he's just like the total opposite. So I kind of bounce questions off both of them and then see what the answer is. And it's like somewhere in the middle. So do you get really into like the selling of furs? Because realistically, like right now I'm at a point where I probably wouldn't sell any of the animals I catch, unless I go catch 20 coon this spring. Then I would keep maybe 1 or 2 of the favorites and then sell the rest, or try to sell the rest. But like the fox, he's at the tannery, he's coming back here. If I catch a coyote, unless it's like some, mangy scabies, coyote, I would want to keep it. I don't care how good the fur is, I'm going to keep it. But eventually I'm going to have to start selling some stuff because my wife's going to put a limit on how much fur we can keep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, or you get crafty with it. Now it's funny. Well, to answer your question, right now I'm in a mode. So I have 3 kids. I have a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old.
Okay.
This has been the lightest trapping season that I've ever had. I was up and, caught a martin the other week. I've done a little bit of beaver trapping. I put some wolf sets out, but like that just takes dedication and time. So, whiffed on that again. I have done both.
Okay.
So when I started trapping, it was purely recreational with the intent of just being a better woodsman. That was it. How do I, start to understand animal patterns, behavior, all that good jazz? Fantastic. And then, my listeners will know this, but in 2023, I lost my day job. It's the first time I'd ever had unemployment from my regular employer. And kind of like you, I'm like in the software engineering side of the house, and I've always been in that role, and that's been my income. Well, in that situation, I thought, oh, wow, I'll just get another job. And then 4 months went by, nothing. 6 months went by, which was like, our reserves, like that white picket fence manifest destiny. We got 6 months savings, we'll be good. 6 months goes by. 7 months goes by. Now we're thinking about selling assets. We sell my wife's car. We do all this stuff trying to pay our mortgages and all that.
Yeah.
And then just by divine luck, that 7 month period lined up right when trapping season was starting. And I was like, this is the only like skill I have or trade that I have. I was kind of working in a taxidermy shop, kind of helping out there. Right. I was like, I'm going all in. And I did. And that was the season where I had a contract to live trap marten with Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. I was, full-time trapping and selling fur. And, it paid our mortgages for a few months. Like during that period, like the amount of fur that I was getting and selling and, really just busting my ass for worked. Do I want to do that again? I don't know. Like, but it's nice to know that you can and you could. Like, it's a hobby that, like, if you do go, full bore, like you can actually make money at it. But that's where like the one mentor where it's like you become a little more selective because you're not catching fur for you, you're catching fur for a fur grader.
Yeah.
And, you're putting fur up for a fur grader versus like, hey, I'm going to, get this tan for my daughter to make some cool, fun stuff with her crafts. Right. Like there's a difference. And I liked it. I'm glad to know that it was there. I'm super, and I will always be appreciative to trapping and the trapping community for that ability to provide for my family when I needed it most. But I just like kind of trapping for fun. Yeah. To be honest.
I want to trap for habitat and conservation, I think, and fun would be the first two. Yeah. But I still have that business bug. I still have that compound interest thing. I should have been an investment advisor because I'm way more successful on that side than I ever am in engineering, and I'm electrical hardware. But so you hear things like, how people talked about how like they sold their rats back in, I don't know what years. I don't know the years as good as you probably do, but like, 82, I sold all my rats for $13 a piece. And I'm like, holy shit, that's like $40 a piece right now.
Yeah.
For a muskrat. And they're like, yeah, we sold coon for $60. And I'm like, well, that would have been like $300 from 1950 to now, and then you talk about like the beaver back in the 1800s, like the richest man in the world was a beaver trader at one point in time.
Yep.
And it wasn't a lot per beaver. I don't know, $5 a beaver, but in 1801, that would have been like $1,000 beaver, and you're catching 600 of them a season, right? And so I'm curious if we'll ever see that or anything close to that again. And everyone likes to say no. Nah, we never will. But what I'm kind of curious about is like, maybe, well, here's the two things. Like in the 1800s, yeah, there was a huge demand for beaver, but there was like less than 1 billion people on the world. And we didn't have the logistics to like turn things on and off like we do now. So like now we have 7-8 billion people in the world. If a fur demand comes up, we have the logistics to supply that now, which means the demand for the fur is going to go through the roof really fast. And we don't have any trappers.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious on that. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, could we ever get to the point? Like, I remember listening to Tony LaPratt on a whitetail habitat thing, and he said he bought his first 50-acre farm from trapping money when he was in high school.
So so 30s and 50s, big. The biggest fur boom, and the one that I love talking with my guests the most, is in the 80s. Yeah. Like I will talk to people who are like, yeah, I was in high school and I bought my first truck just by running my trap line before school. Yeah. Like the amount of fur. But that was because China was buying up a lot of our furs and it had a good price. Now, what's interesting to me is like that CNN article that I took a snapshot of, like, there's an opportunity here, like, whether that be philosophical for people realizing that that is the sustainable biodegradable thing that you can do, which is trapping. Or, is it just like a reaction to the synthetic fur market and realizing that's all using petrochemicals and blah, 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 blah. I don't know, but I will say this. So I have, I write books. I write, historical nonfiction. I've written a couple other books, The Trade Gap, Turning Feral. I have one idea that I've been really focused on, and I think you'll appreciate this, and it's called The First and Last Millionaire. So
Oh,
John Jacob
you
Astor,
think the first millionaire was, what's his name, the beaver trapper,
John Jacob Astor,
and then the last millionaire is gonna
fur
is this
trapper.
like chaos, like the
Yeah, it's a
world's
little bit
gonna
of that, like,
crumble, and now it's like the only way to make warm clothes is with fur, and so the trappers were like, it's almost like I kind of have the same thing with farmers, like, yeah, you guys bitch and moan, and it is hard, but at some point, if things go sideways, you control the food supply.
mm-hmm.
So you will set your own prices. If everything else fails, you will just say like, hey, I'm not selling my corn for less than $100 a bushel.
Yeah.
Which isn't, you know what I mean? But it's like, because they have the last thing humanity needs. So yeah, I could see it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I would say like this. I would maybe tweak it though, because it won't be millionaire, because anyone can become a millionaire nowadays. I would say it's like the first, millionaire and the last, or the first trillionaire or whatever, you know what I mean? Because it'll be a huge scale up. But yeah, I love it. It would be a great, if you could find a way to tell that story and make it make sense of like what happened. Like you almost like start right in the thick of it, and then you have to back up like 100 years and be like, wait, what's going on? How did people get here? And it's like, well, Chernobyl they never capped it. Now, it just Eastern Europe.
See, those are all the details that have yet to be worked out.
Yeah.
So maybe we can do a workshop on that. But I think the rough idea makes sense, because it's what is it? Food, water, shelter, right?
Yeah.
That's the three. It's where we started. We're great industrialists as a human race, and we've built up from there and somehow avoided, at least that we know, nuclear fallout and winter of, killing all of ourselves.
Right.
But then, you see everything that's going on in the world. What's interesting to me, here's my tell. So the circles I run in, like, often are, clearly like 2A, hunting, trapping. What has surprised me is I like I said, I didn't grow up with any of this. So I grew up very urban. My friend circle growing up is like very wide. It spans both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
All these different viewpoints. Like I would consider myself like very middle of the road on a lot of these things, and I can kind of talk with both sides. But the number of friends or acquaintances that have reached out to me to be like, hey, like, I'm just curious to like either get into hunting or to understand trapping. Like, it is unbelievable how many people to me are reaching out like, hey, what's the best resource to like understand? Like, I don't want to do it yet, but I'm curious, because I don't trust these systems that have been in place for 50 years, because everybody's seeing the cracks in the obelisk, and now it's people are coming and asking.
I wish trapping and hunting could go hire the same like PR and strategy firm that like the CIA and the deep state have.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, in 50 years, we want people to be terrified of fats and eat our sugar-filled cereal. How do we do that? And it's like, well, first thing we bankroll a study that says, this, and then we got to like it, not like in a negative toxic way, but like if trapping had a single source of communication and branding along some of these things you said, like petrochemicals and fake fur and the renewability of fur, and like if people understood how fast coyotes renew and regenerate and repopulate, right, people wouldn't be worried at all about trapping coyotes, right? And so and all the other impacts to other wildlife that mesopredators have when they go uncontrolled, basically since the fur collapse in the 80s, no one's trapped since then, except for the old timers that trapped through the 80s, and they just love it, and that's what they're going to do no matter what. So I feel like if we just had like that longevity of branding and marketing and like thinking through how do we get people on board with these renewable furs, I feel like that could help. But who would do it? Who's going to do it?
Well, hopefully somebody, the NSA, is listening to this, and they have like, just a warm heart towards, trapping and, sustainability over the long run. So if you're listening, help us out here. Help us with this.
Like if a study came out that said like the true long range impacts of trapping versus, artificial fur, right? Petrochemicals, this, that, petroleum you name it, all the thing, like none of it's going to be good versus this one thing. It's like butter, right? Yeah, there's butter alternatives that are all terrible. They start with a plastic, and then you add another chemical to fix that chemical. Then you add another chemical to fix that. And it's like, Or you can just have butter. It's like, it's the thing. There's no ingredients in it. It is the ingredient, right? Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't have the whole pound, but it's healthy.
Yeah, I think I think the answer is it's happening in pockets,
Yeah.
right?
Then
Like,
you see stuff like the Denver stock convention where they wanted to outlaw the sale of fur, and then they didn't even realize that that's what cowboy hats are made out of.
or flies. Like, people want beaver fur for their fishing.
Yeah.
That was one of the other big pushback on that one in Denver. It was like,
I
wait,
think
whoa,
it
whoa, whoa,
failed
whoa, whoa,
too.
whoa. It did fail.
Yeah.
I mean, I was down there 2 years ago or 3 years ago now for the Prop 127. When they were trying to outlaw the trophy hunting and
Yeah. Trophy cat
the
hunting.
mountain.
Yeah.
Yep, and it is. This is like the one thing though that is so emotion based.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing to overcome.
And that's
like
where you have to like not lead with trapping is good, and they're gonna say no, I'm not comfortable with that. It's the like you almost have to like slow bake all of this. Like you got to start that stew, and you got to start simmering that stew, and you got to start like, hey, look at all the dangers of petrochemicals and fake fur. Don't even mention real fur. Just say like, just be like, oh man, fake fur sounds kind of scary. Like
Yeah.
kind of like what people think when they're like, all the BPA's and PFAS in your plastic Tupperware that you microwave. Like, oh man, maybe I should stop microwaving my food in plastic, right? And then you come out with a year later, once that's been marinated, and be like, hey, glass is a really safe alternative. You're like, oh, okay.
Hey, it worked on my wife because we've got nothing but glass containers now.
Yeah.
Like after we've had kids,
Me
so.
too. So yeah, I'm curious. Are you at all interested in these niche or alternative fur markets or fur trapping markets? So where I'm kind of going with this is the first time I'm publicly stating this goal, right? So me and my wife, we do really well. We have really good careers as our main jobs. But we bought a 40-acre farmstead with a big finished 5-bedroom house and a shop, and so we kind of married, that. We didn't add them one by one when we had the cash. We all at once, boom. And so we don't splurge much, right? And so we are still using my father-in-law's 4-wheeler. Super gracious that he just lets us keep it here. It's a little bit older. It's like straight axle. My goal, my dad is a Ranger. My brother is a Ranger. Grew up with Rangers. They're expensive. They're awesome, but they're expensive.
I just sold mine, so I know how expensive they are.
Yeah. My goal is to buy a Ranger, and hopefully with tracks, because I really need the tracks kit for our farm here, with money I generate from trapping. I think it would be an amazing content series. And I know it's probably not going to happen from muskrats and coyotes at $10 a coyote and $2 a rat. Plus, I don't have any rats, and I haven't caught a coyote yet. So I'm really kind of screwed on that. And I don't think I can catch enough $40 skunks to make money, that much money. But I've been seeing people sell like a tan squirrel on Etsy for $28. And I'm like, well, I have a billion squirrels. I have enough squirrels on my farm right now to buy that Ranger, especially if I learn to DIY tan. So I'm like, can that be an avenue? One of the people in our class, he said, hey, if you really want to make money in trapping, it's the ADC side right now. And it's like, if you can figure out how to trap pocket gophers here in the metro, you put a sign in your front yard, charge what you want, right? Because it's all these landowners where they're not looking at it as like, is a gopher hide worth? They're like, I'm sick of my yard getting torn up. And so I'm kind of curious, like, could I charge $50 a gopher to go trap and 2 gopher minimum? Because I'm not driving across the county to set traps in your yard for free, right?
Yep.
So, and then I'm like, well, $50 a gopher, $30 a squirrel. Like if I go build some PVC 8-channel conibear, 2-inch conibear, and put corn in the middle, and every night I'm getting 8 squirrels, like that. I'm kind of curious, like that could maybe buy a Ranger after a couple years. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are on some of these alternatives.
We got to get that Excel spreadsheet. I feel like you and I are like-minded on that. Let's do,
Oh, I already know, man. I already know. $30,000 you do, I mean, that's $650 gophers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's what surprised me too, just for folks like on alternative markets. So like here in Idaho, we have a fur sale put on by Idaho Trappers Association.
Yeah.
Every January and March. So 2 in a row. So like kind of
yeah.
right after the main part of trapping season and then kind of the late season in March. The past few years, obviously fur is fur. You're going to get your prices, you're going to get graded and, all that good jazz. What has surprised me is some of like where I've made a little bit of money and is bringing in raw skulls. And the past like 2 years, like more skulls have been requested, like just raw. You don't have to clean them. They're not like bleached or you don't have beetles on them, just skulls. And I'm like, what is that? And the buyers that have been coming and buying up skulls are people from the Wiccan community, like witchcraft.
Oh,
like there's a market for people who want to buy the raw skulls to, put hexes on people, I guess. Or, I mean, no offense to anybody in the Wiccan community. I just don't know what it's about. However, like that's
so
a big
you're not
thing.
even not even a fleshed skull. Which is not just the right term, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. It's not cleaned. It's just a raw frozen skull.
And so what's like the number one species you've seen? Is it coyote and fox? Like
it goes through, it runs the gamut, whether it's marten, whether it's, I don't think they care. Like you could probably sell frozen gopher skulls.
And how much are they getting for like I don't know.
I'll have to send it off channel. I don't know. I mean, frozen coyote skull, maybe $20-$30.
Dang, because it's not hard to clean them, especially like
it's not hard to clean them, and you could probably like sell them for more. But I'm just saying, like you don't even have to do that, and you can make some money off these skulls too. So like, there's a lot going into this too. Like where if you are trying to maximize for profit, like there's a lot you could do. Is the point? Like there are a lot of little niche markets where and again, I think this goes back to conservation in general. Like you're using the whole animal. Yeah. Right. Like it's not just like throwing away the carcass. You can save some for baiting. You can save some for making your own lure. And then you can sell parts too that you probably wouldn't even imagine you could have sold.
Well, that's what I'm very curious about with the squirrels is maybe squirrel skulls are on that list. We know the tails are valuable for fly tying and stuff. There's a muskie company that will buy squirrel tails for 50 cents a piece. I bet you could do better than that even. But then the squirrel hides on Etsy for $28. Like if you can DIY tan for like $1 or $2 a hide and you're selling those squirrels for $28, Etsy takes like 20%, unfortunately, but like $20 a squirrel. I mean, I got a lot of those and you had maybe $5 more for the skull. I mean, that could stack up so fast and then use the squirrel itself as bait for, predators.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's fully resourceful. I'm behind this. I would watch this series. I think like,
well, and that's what I thought, like a gamified shorts series where there's like a little dollar ticker in the top right, and it's like every time you catch a squirrel, it's like ding, and it rolls up $20, and then and eventually, I think what I would actually buy the Rangers probably the content monetization from the videos, not actually but you never know, and so that was like, could I do in the summer? Could I go check, because we have very loose regulations on gopher trapping and ADC side. On gophers, and so it's like you don't have check requirements, you don't have all this stuff, so it's like I could go do like 3 properties and check one property one morning before work, check a different property the next morning, check a different property the next morning, and you start to scale this up, and pretty soon you could take on bigger government contracts. This park has a gopher infestation and kids are breaking ankles and whatever, so I think they could scale up. So I'm kind of curious on that side.
Maybe you'll be my my character inspiration for the last millionaire or trillionaire.
That would be so cool. Yeah. Inspired by a real because then at the end of the movie it'd be inspired by a true story.
Yeah. Only the names, faces, people, and everything else has changed.
Yeah. And he makes his million on squirrels.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool. I will say, so I think today I got 4 160s. I've started very small. And what I realized real fast is 12 snares is not very many snares. 3 footholds is not very many footholds, because you put out all 3 and then you're like, oh man, this would have been a great spot. Oh, this was a better spot than the last spot I just set. I haven't put my dog proofs out yet because the coons are still sleeping here in Minnesota, but I'm sure I'll reach the same conclusion that 4 isn't very many. And so that's the one thing it sucks because it is a little expensive to get into.
It's a sunk cost for sure. Like there's a little bit of capital you got to invest to make it meaningful.
But the fun thing is, like, I was making, like a saber-tooth drag's $10, but I was making as close to the same drag as I could with rebar for $2 a piece. Like, I've been doing it a little bit better to try to save some of that money. I wish I'd have more of it, because my dream for this Ranger is to have just a rig on the back and it's just 50 drags and 50 snares, and I just drive the property and put some out. yeah, so
That's the dream, man. Well, I know you and I both got to drop here in like 2 minutes, but this was awesome. And I can't wait to see this series too.
Yeah. So real fast, closing up. If my voice doesn't sound familiar, I'm Brian Krebs, host of the DrawnWest Podcast. We focus a lot on Western hunting and helping people get into things. If you haven't heard Zach's voice before, you probably come from DrawnWest. Zach is the host of the Okayest Trapper, one part of the Okayest Hunter Network, an amazing network of amazing creators. Go follow his channel, Okayest Trapper. This is going to be a collab, a synergistic project that we're trying out. So give both a follow, but thanks for being here.